The morning sky over Seoul blazed with unnatural light, as 7 massive ships broke through the clouds. Admiral Kim Tae-woo pressed his face against the reinforced glass of the observation deck, watching the alien vessels descend with impossible grace. Each ship was the size of a city block, their crystalline surfaces catching and reflecting sunlight in ways that hurt to look at directly. "Sir, incoming transmission from the lead vessel," Lieutenant Park Soo-jin called from her station. Hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the communication controls. They're requesting permission to land at the diplomatic zone. Kim nodded, his throat dry. After decades of wondering if humanity was alone in the universe, the answer had arrived without warning. The ships settled onto the specially prepared landing platforms with barely a whisper of sound, their hulls shifting from transparent crystal to a soft, welcoming blue. The airlock doors opened with a hiss of escaping atmosphere, and the first aliens stepped onto Earth's soil. Kim had expected something monstrous or at least obviously foreign, but these beings moved with an elegance that made human dancers look clumsy. They stood nearly 8 feet tall, their skin translucent like frosted glass, revealing the slow pulse of silvery fluid that served as their blood. Most striking were their forearms, which moved in perfect coordination as if controlled by a single mind. Their leader approached the human delegation with measured steps. When it spoke, a small device at its throat translated the melodious alien language into perfect Korean. "Greetings, children of Earth. I am called Valthari in your tongue. We come bearing gifts of friendship and an invitation to join the greater community of peaceful worlds." Dr. Lee Min-ho stood behind the official diplomatic party, his scientific mind racing as he observed the aliens. Something felt wrong about their technology. The translation device showed no visible power source, no connection points, no maintenance ports. It was too perfect, too seamlessly integrated into the alien's body. When his scanner tried to analyze it, the readings came back as impossible combinations of organic and mechanical components. Valthari gestured gracefully, and other aliens brought forward gleaming containers. "We offer you clean energy that will end your world's environmental struggles," the alien leader announced. "Medical technologies that will eliminate disease and extend your natural lifespans. Transportation systems that will carry you between the stars as easily as you now travel between your cities." The world leaders present gasped in amazement as holographic displays showed the promised technologies in action. Entire cities powered by devices no larger than briefcases. Hospitals, where patients entered sick and emerged perfectly healthy within hours. Ships that could cross galactic distances in weeks rather than millennia, Captain. Hanju watched from her position near the security perimeter, her soldiers' instincts screaming warnings. The aliens carried no visible weapons, but their scanning devices swept continuously across the human gathering. She noticed how those scans lingered on military personnel, on the concealed weapons of the security team, on the structural weak points of the surrounding buildings. During a break in the formal presentations, she moved closer to Admiral Kim. "Sir, something's not right," she whispered. "They're mapping our defenses while they talk about friendship." Kim glanced at her, then back at the aliens who were now demonstrating a device that could purify polluted water instantly. "Evidence. Their scanners have analyzed every weapon in a 50-meter radius. They've identified the location of our backup communication systems. Again, watch how they ask questions about our government structure. They're not interested in how we make decisions. They want to know who gives orders and how those orders spread down the chain of command." Dr. Lee approached them during another pause in the presentations. "Admiral, I need to speak with you privately. The technology they're showing us violates several fundamental laws of physics. Either they're using science so advanced we can't comprehend it, or these demonstrations are elaborate illusions designed to impress us." Before Kim could respond, Valthari called for attention.
"Tell me not."
"We understand that trust must be earned through actions, not words. Therefore, we will leave these gifts with you now, asking nothing in return. Use them freely. Learn from them. When you are ready to join our circle of perpetual harmony, we will return." The aliens began loading their gifts onto human transport vehicles. Dr. Lee watched in fascination and growing horror as the energy generators activated themselves without any human input, immediately beginning to broadcast on frequencies that his instruments could barely detect. Within hours of the aliens' departure, reports flooded in from around the world. The energy generators were providing exactly the clean power promised. The medical devices were performing miraculous healings. The water purification systems were restoring polluted rivers and lakes to pristine condition. But Dr. Lee's private scans told a different story. The devices were doing far more than their advertised functions. They were broadcasting complex signals into the human brain's electrical field. Subtle changes that wouldn't be noticed for weeks or months. "They're not gifts," he told Admiral Kim in a secure briefing room that night. "They're the first phase of an invasion. And by the time we realize what they're really doing, it may already be too late to stop them." Outside, the city of Seoul glowed with clean alien energy, and around the world, humanity celebrated the dawn of a new age of peace and prosperity. Dr. Lee Min-ho stared at the brain scan results with growing horror. The images showed his colleagues neural pathways, but they were wrong, terribly wrong. Where human brains should show the chaotic, unpredictable patterns of independent thought. Dr. Park's scan revealed organized, symmetrical waveforms that pulsed in perfect rhythm. "When did you first use the Zephyrian medical pod?" Lee asked his research partner, trying to keep his voice steady. Dr. Park smiled with an expression that didn't reach his eyes. 3 weeks ago, for my back pain, it worked wonderfully. I feel so much calmer now, so much more at peace." His voice carried the same flat, emotionless tone that Lee had been hearing more and more often around the research facility. Lee's hands shook as he filed scan results in his hidden folder. Over the past month, he had documented similar changes in 17 other researchers. All had used Zephyrian technology. All now spoke in the same emotionless monotone and showed complete obedience to authority figures without question or complaint. The nanomachines weren't healing diseases. They were rewriting human consciousness itself. That evening, Lee met with Captain Han Ji-woo in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Seoul. She was one of the few military officers who had refused all alien enhancements, claiming she didn't trust anything that promised to make her better without effort. "The medical pods are just the beginning," Lee explained, showing her his secretly recorded data. "The energy generators are broadcasting signals directly into people's brains. Low-frequency waves that suppress the parts of our minds responsible for anger, fear, and independent decision-making." Han studied the evidence with the cold focus of a career soldier. "How many people are affected?" "In Seoul alone, approximately 40% of the population has used Zephyrian technology in some form. Globally, the number is probably higher." Lee's voice cracked with exhaustion. "You're turning us into a species of willing slaves, and most people are grateful for it." Han had spent weeks investigating the aliens' claims about their peaceful confederation. Using her military clearance, she had accessed satellite data and deep space monitoring systems. What she found made her stomach turn. The Zephyrian ships that occasionally visited Earth weren't just diplomatic vessels. They were transport ships carrying cargo containers filled with biological specimens. "I've identified 6 different alien species in those containers," she told Lee. "All of them show the same neural modifications we're seeing in humans. They're being transported to work camps across Zephyrian space, completely docile and obedient." 2 of them sat in silence, processing the magnitude of the threat. The aliens hadn't come as conquerors wielding weapons. They had come as saviors, offering gifts, and humanity had welcomed them with open arms. Colonel Park Soo-jin operated from a network of abandoned subway tunnels beneath Seoul, coordinating with the few remaining unaffected military units worldwide. Her secure communication system relied on old analog equipment that couldn't be monitored by Zephyrian technology. Every day, fewer people answered her calls. "Report from the European cell," she told Admiral Kim during their weekly briefing. "General Mueller used a Zephyrian medical pod to treat his arthritis last week. As of yesterday, he's recommending that all European resistance fighters surrender and accept alien guidance." Admiral Kim felt the weight of command crushing down. On him, he had watched his own staff slowly succumb to the alien influence. Officers who had served with him for decades now spoke to him like he was a confused child who simply needed to understand the benefits of Zephyrian technology engineer. Kim Dungman worked 18-hour days in his hidden laboratory, trying to develop countermeasures against the alien control systems. He had managed to create a crude jamming device that could block the neural signals for short periods. But it required enormous amounts of power and only worked within a few meters of the generator. "The aliens are incredibly advanced," he reported to the Resistance leadership, but they made one crucial mistake. They assumed humans would react like their previous victims. They expected us to submit quietly once we understood the futility of resistance. President Choi Hee-jin watched her government crumble from within. Her defense minister had begun recommending complete integration with Zephyrian systems. Her economic advisor spoke enthusiastically about the benefits of surrendering national sovereignty to alien guidance. Even her personal bodyguards now carried Zephyrian communication devices that allowed them to receive direct orders from alien handlers. During a cabinet meeting, she realized she was the only person in the room still capable of independent thought. Her ministers sat with the same peaceful expressions, nodding in unison as they discussed plans to accelerate human integration into the Zephyrian collective. "We should be grateful," her defense minister said in his new monotone voice. "The Zephyrians are offering us something no human civilization has ever achieved: perfect peace, perfect order, perfect harmony." Colonel Park's latest intelligence report painted a terrifying picture. "Sir, we estimate that 60% of Earth's population is now under some form of alien influence. The rate of conversion is accelerating as people voluntarily seek out Zephyrian technology for its promised benefits." Admiral Kim looked around the abandoned subway station that served as their headquarters. 24 people, all that remained of Earth's free government. Outside, 8 billion humans were slowly being transformed into willing servants of an alien empire. "How long do we have before there aren't enough free humans left to mount any kind of resistance?" he asked. Colonel Park's answer chilled him to the bone. "At current rates, 3 months, maybe less." The abandoned subway tunnels beneath Seoul had become humanity's last fortress. Admiral Kim Tae-woo walked through the narrow corridors carved from concrete and steel, passing makeshift laboratories and communication centers where the few remaining free humans worked around the clock. The air smelled of rust, sweat, and desperation. Dr. Lee Min-ho looked up from his workbench as the admiral approached. Scattered across the metal surface were dozens of small devices that hummed with barely contained energy. "I've finally cracked their neural control system," he announced, holding up a device no larger than a smartphone. "This jamming unit can block their signals for up to 6 hours before the battery dies." "How many can you make?" Kim asked, examining the crude but effective device. "With our current resources, maybe 50 per week, but that's not the important part." Lee's eyes gleamed, with the first hope Kim had seen in months. The aliens made a critical error in their planning. They studied our technology, our governments, our military capabilities, but they never studied our psychology. Lee activated a captured Zephyrian scanner and pointed it at his own head. The device showed his brain patterns as chaotic swirls of electrical activity, completely unlike the ordered patterns of the controlled humans. Every species they've conquered before became predictable once they were partially converted. Their resistance movements followed logical patterns, made rational decisions based on available data. Kim nodded, beginning to understand. "But humans don't work that way." "Exactly. We're irrational, emotional, unpredictable. We make decisions based on anger, fear, love, hate. The aliens can't model our behavior because we don't even understand it ourselves." Lee gestured toward the tunnel entrance where Captain Han Ju-woo was briefing her strike team. "They never expected us to fight back so chaotically." Captain Han had become the Resistance's most effective field commander, not through superior firepower, but through tactics that baffled the alien occupation forces. Her latest mission had rescued 37 humans from a conversion facility using nothing but misdirection and psychological warfare. The aliens expect military responses to follow predictable patterns. She explained to her team, "Attack the strongest point. Retreat when casualties mount. negotiate when defeat seems certain. But we're not going to do any of that. Sergeant Oh Hyun-woo, her second-in-command, had proven particularly gifted at exploiting alien weaknesses. Their security systems are designed to detect threats and respond with overwhelming force. They can't handle multiple simultaneous non-threats that suddenly become dangerous. His specialty was infiltration missions, where his team would enter alien facilities disguised as maintenance workers, tourists, or even controlled humans. The alien scanners would detect no weapons, no hostile intent, no signs of resistance. Activity. Then, once inside, ordinary objects would become weapons. The team would strike with devastating effectiveness before vanishing back into the civilian population. Colonel Park Soo-jin had made the most important discovery of the war. Using captured alien communication equipment, she had managed to contact other resistance groups across the galaxy. What she learned changed everything. "We're not the first species to resist," she reported to the Leadership Council. All 6 of the previously conquered races have hidden groups of free individuals. They've been waiting for decades for someone to restart the fight. The alien communication network carried messages from dozens of worlds. The Kethmori had maintained secret enclaves and asteroid mining facilities. The Velinari had hidden communities. In the depths of their ocean worlds, Zarketh had never fully submitted, keeping their warrior culture alive in remote mountain strongholds. "They're all watching us," Park continued. "Our rebellion is inspiring uprisings that have been dormant for 50 years. The aliens are facing resistance on 17 different worlds simultaneously." Engineer Kim Dong-min had spent months studying captured Zephyrian technology, learning to understand and modify their systems. His greatest breakthrough came when he realized that alien technology wasn't just advanced, it was vulnerable to creative misuse. "They designed their systems to be foolproof," he explained to the council, displaying his latest creation. "But they assumed the fools using them would follow the intended purpose." The device in his hands looked like a standard Zephyrian medical scanner, but internal modifications had turned it into a weapon that could disrupt alien neural implants from a distance. "Every piece of technology they gave us can be weaponized if you understand its true function. Their energy generators can be overloaded to create electromagnetic pulses. Their medical pods can be reversed to cause rather than cure biological problems. Their communication devices can be hacked to spread our jamming signals." The resistance had grown from 24 desperate survivors to a coordinated network of several hundred fighters. "You're operated in cells, struck without warning, and disappeared." Before the aliens could respond, most importantly, they had begun liberating converted humans by the thousands. Then came Velthari's ultimatum. The alien leader's image appeared on every screen and soul, his harmonious voice carrying a message of final warning. "Your resistance has become tiresome. Submit peacefully to our guidance, or face the full military might of the Zephyrian Confederation. Your species lacks the wisdom to join our harmony willingly." Admiral Kim stood in the main communication center, surrounded by the faces of humanity's last hope. He activated the broadcasting system that would carry his response across every frequency the aliens monitored. "You came to our world promising peace," he said, his voice carrying the weight of humanity's anger. "You wanted to give us harmony, order, and tranquility. You're about to learn something about the human species that you should have studied before you decided to enslave us." Kim's words echoed through the tunnels and out into the city above, where millions of controlled humans heard them with growing confusion as their suppressed emotions began stirring. "You wanted peace? Now you're about to discover why humanity has never known it." The sky above Seoul burned with the light of 1,000 suns as the Zephorian warfleet dropped out of hyperspace. Admiral Kim Tae-woo watched the invasion begin from the cramped command center of his mobile headquarters, a subway train that raced through the underground tunnels beneath the city. The aliens had expected to find a broken species ready to surrender. Instead, they found 8 billion humans ready for war. "Incoming transmission from the lead Zephyrian vessel," reported Colonel Park Soo-jin from her communication station. "They're demanding immediate surrender of all resistance forces." Kim smiled grimly as he watched his tactical displays. The aliens had made their first mistake by announcing their attack. Human forces had been preparing for this moment for weeks. "Send them our response," he ordered. Across the city, hidden weapon systems activated simultaneously. The aliens had spent months installing their technology into human infrastructure, never realizing that engineer Kim Dong-min had been secretly modifying every single device. Energy generators that had powered the city for months suddenly reversed their function. Sending massive electromagnetic pulses into the alien ships overhead, Captain Han Ji-woo crouched in the ruins of a shopping district. Watching alien ground forces advance with their characteristic perfect formation. The Zephyrions moved like dancers, each step coordinated with mathematical precision. It was beautiful, orderly, and completely predictable. "Now," she whispered into her radio, the attack came from every direction at once. Human fighters emerged from sewers, dropped from buildings, and materialized from crowds of civilians. They used weapons the aliens had never seen before, tactics that violated every rule of civilized warfare, and a level of coordinated chaos that turned the aliens' strategies against them. The Zephyrians had eliminated war from their culture 300 years ago. They remembered it only as historical data, theoretical knowledge stored in computer files. They had never faced an enemy that used deception, misdirection, pure savage creativity as primary weapons. Sergeant Oh Hyun-woo led a team of fighters through the subway tunnels, using the alien scanning systems against their creators. Scanners were designed to identify threats and coordinate responses, but Oh had reprogrammed them to broadcast false information. Alien units received orders to attack empty buildings while human forces struck their undefended supply lines. "The aliens fight like computers," Oh reported over the tactical network. "They analyze, calculate, and respond according to programmed patterns. But they can't handle chaos." Dr. Lee Min-ho had spent weeks preparing his most devastating weapon. The nanomachines that had enslaved millions of humans could be reprogrammed, turned from tools of control into agents of liberation. His viral code spread through the alien network like wildfire, reaching every controlled human on the planet simultaneously. In conversion centers across Seoul, enslaved humans suddenly stopped their mechanical tasks. The peaceful expressions faded from their faces, replaced by confusion, then understanding, then pure rage. The aliens had suppressed human emotions for months, but they had not eliminated them. Now, all that contained anger exploded at once. "The liberated populations are joining the fight," Lee reported to Admiral Kim, "but their fury is almost uncontrollable. Months of suppressed emotions are erupting simultaneously." Kim nodded grimly. He had expected this. Humans who had been turned into docile servants were now experiencing the full return of their natural aggression. They fought with a savagery that shocked even their own military forces. Using their bare hands when weapons weren't available, Colonel Park coordinated the global resistance from her command post deep beneath the city. Her screens showed uprisings, erupting across dozens of worlds as the 6 conquered alien species followed humanity's example. The Zephyrian Confederation was facing simultaneous rebellions for the first time in their history. "The Kethmori have seized control of 3 mining worlds," she reported. "The Velenari are attacking Zephyrian facilities in the outer systems. The Zarkith warrior clans have declared holy war against their oppressors." The aliens' perfect order was crumbling. Their communication networks, designed for peaceful coordination, couldn't handle the massive flow of combat data from dozens of simultaneous conflicts. Their military doctrine, based on overwhelming superiority against predictable opponents, failed completely against enemies who fought with desperate creativity. Engineer Kim Dong-min stood in a hidden launch facility outside the city, watching his greatest creation rise into the battle-torn sky. The sleek vessels looked exactly like Zephyrian ships, because they were Zephyrian ships. But inside, every system had been modified for human warfare. "They built these for exploration and peaceful contact," he announced to his launch crews. "We've turned them into instruments of war." The hybrid fleet launched into space with human crews who understood both alien technology and human tactics. They fought with a combination of advanced alien systems and brutal human creativity that the Zephyrians had never encountered. Ship-to-ship combat became a nightmare for the aliens as human commanders used every dirty trick, every desperate gambit, every ruthless strategy developed over centuries of human warfare. Admiral Kim watched the tactical displays as the tide of battle shifted. The alien fleet, which had arrived expecting easy victory, found itself fighting for survival against an enemy that refused to follow any rules of civilized combat. "Sir," Colonel Park called from her station, "we're receiving surrender requests from 17 alien vessels." When I am sort of self. Kim's response was broadcast across all frequencies, reaching every human fighter on Earth and every resistance cell across the galaxy. He wanted to give us peace through enslavement. Now they'll learn what real peace costs. The galaxy burned with the fires of liberation as humanity's war spread from world to world. And the Zephyrians realized they had awakened something far more dangerous than they could have ever imagined. The 7 Zephyrian homeworlds hung in space like glowing jewels, each one a paradise of crystal cities and floating gardens. For 3 centuries, these worlds had been the center of a peaceful empire built on the enslaved minds of countless species. Today, they would burn. Admiral Kim Tae-woo stood on the bridge of the captured Zephyrian dreadnought, Harmony's End, watching as his liberation fleet took position around the primary world. The ship's hull bore the scars of 100 battles and the insignia of the Terran Liberation Front painted in human blood and alien metal. Around him, representatives from 6 different species worked side by side at alien control stations, their faces united by shared hatred for their former oppressors. "All fleets report ready for simultaneous assault," Colonel Park Soo-jin announced from the tactical station. Her left arm was gone, lost in the siege of Europa Station, but her remaining hand moved across the controls with deadly precision. "The Keth Mori battle groups are in position around Zephyr Prime. The Velinary Deep Strike forces have reached the outer worlds." Captain Han Ju-woo led the assault on the most heavily defended planet from the bridge of her own captured vessel. The tactics she employed combined 300 years of human military doctrine with alien technology that the Zephyrians had foolishly shared with their victims. Her forces struck like a hurricane of organized destruction, hitting 17 different targets simultaneously. While making the aliens believe they were attacking somewhere else entirely, the Zephyrians had spent centuries believing that warfare was a problem solved by superior technology and overwhelming force. They had never faced an enemy that turned their own advantages into weaknesses, that used their predictable responses as weapons against them. Dr. Lee Min-ho worked in the ship's converted medical bay surrounded by banks of alien computers running his final creation. The virus he had developed would spread through every Zephyrian system, permanently destroying their ability to create the neural control technology that had enslaved billions. Unlike their methods, his weapon targeted only the machines leaving, the aliens themselves unharmed, but unable to ever again steal the minds of other species. Biological warfare was their specialty, he explained to Admiral Kim as he activated the transmission systems. They used our own bodies against us, turned our brains into prisons. Biology will be their judge. The virus spread through the Zephyrian networks faster than their security systems could respond. Within minutes, every neural control device in their empire began shutting down permanently. Across the galaxy, enslaved populations felt their minds clear for the first time in decades as the artificial harmony was stripped away, leaving them free to feel anger, fear, love, and hope again. As the planetary defenses crumbled under the coordinated assault, a familiar voice crackled across the communication channels. "Valthari, The alien who had first come to Earth with promises of peace now pleaded desperately for mercy from his former victims. "Please, we understand our mistake." The alien leader transmitted from his crystalline palace as human forces breached the outer city. "We offer you true peace this time. You will withdraw from all conquered worlds immediately. We'll never return to threaten any species again. Surely this is what you wanted from the beginning." Colonel Park responded for all of humanity, her voice carrying the weight of months spent fighting in tunnels and ruins while her people were enslaved. "You're absolutely right, Valtheri. We did want peace. We came to you with open hands and hearts full of hope for the future. But you taught us something important about offers of peace." The transmission crackled with static as explosions rocked the alien capital city. "You taught us that sometimes people lie about their intentions. You taught us that peace can be used as a weapon against those who trust too easily. You taught us that some gifts come with chains attached." The 7 homeworlds fell within hours of each other, their defenses overwhelmed by enemies who fought with a combination of advanced technology and the savage creativity that only comes from righteous anger. The crystal cities that had stood for millennia crumbled under the assault of beings they had tried to turn into mindless servants. Engineer Kim Dong-min supervised the systematic dismantling of the Zephyrian industrial complexes, ensuring that their conquest technology could never be rebuilt. Every neural control device, every subliminal transmission system, every tool they had used to steal free will was destroyed completely. "The worlds themselves will survive," he reported to Admiral Kim, as demolition teams worked through the alien facilities. "But they'll serve as memorial parks now, reminders of what happens when peace is used to disguise tyranny." In the aftermath of victory, humanity found itself in an unexpected position. The other species looked to them for leadership. Recognizing that human unpredictability and refusal to submit had saved the galaxy from eternal enslavement, Admiral Kim established the Terran Defense Covenant from the bridge of his flagship, creating an alliance dedicated to protecting species from those who would exploit their desire for harmony and prosperity. The organization's charter was simple. Never again would any species be allowed to use false promises of peace as weapons against the innocent. Standing at the observation deck of his command ship, Kim looked out at the stars and reflected on what humanity had become. They had entered the galactic community hoping for friendship and wisdom from advanced civilizations. Instead, they had become the galaxy's sword. The species other worlds called when diplomacy failed and freedom needed protecting. The war was over. But peace would require eternal vigilance. Humanity had learned that lesson in blood and fire, and they would never forget it.